Listen up, all you shaved monkeys. It is I, the Riddler. And you are listening to a podcast called Batman on Film. Question, why is it not called Riddler on Film? You dirty, stinking, filthy scoundrels!
I have given a name to my pain. The Batman.
Always waiting for some Batman to save you.
It's simple. We kill the Bat of Gotham. You don't really think you'll win, do you? I'm Batman.
Hello and welcome to episode 135 of the Batman on Film podcast. BOF is the sponsor as well as a proud member of the Batman Podcast Network. Check out all the shows over at batmanpodcastnetwork.com and follow our Twitter at BatPodNetwork. If you're listening to us on iTunes, if you take the time to rate and review the show, we'll read it on the air. Batman on Film is now also on Patreon. If you like what we do here at BOF, whether it's the podcasts, vlogs, or the website itself, and you want to help support us, if you're so inclined, please head over to patreon.com/BatmanOnFilm and sign up. I am the host of today's episode, Ryan Haas, and we will be interviewing a very special guest, actor Wally Wingert, best known to most Bat fans as the voice of the Riddler across such things as the Batman Arkham video games and the recent Batman 66 animated adaptations. But I'm not going to do that all by myself, and in regards to that, I have co-host Ryan Lauer on to help facilitate. How are you doing?
Hey, Mr. Haas. I'm doing great. I've got one of my 10 pairs of Batman socks on. I've got on a green hoodie for the Riddler. I am ready to visit Mr. Wingert.
You're ready to get your riddle on.
Yeah. I'm not good at riddles, but, I can talk. So there we go.
What is 6 ounces, sits in a tree, and is very dangerous?
A cat. I don't know.
It's a sparrow with a machine gun. Don't you know your Batman 66 history? Oh, my goodness. I gave that to you.
Good. See, this is how good it's going to go, I guess.
Oh, man.
I'm embarrassed.
Well,
I'll see my way out now.
Well, no, I need you for this interview. So this little peek behind the curtain here, this is kind of your baby. This is something that you wanted to do, and you contacted Mr. Wingert and got it all set up. So
I don't want to brag, but yes. Actually, no, I was just thinking that 2019 marks 10 years. Like this August is 10 years since the first Arkham game, which, who'd have thunk it'd become what it is now, that it's Arkham-verse. It's part of it's a whole
it's its
world.
Own universe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was just trying to think, how could we, what's some fun things that we could do? And I'm like, let's see if we can interview some people. And I just thought the Riddler, why not? Let's just reach out. And I look and I found Wally Wingert. He's a very accomplished voiceover artist, and I was able to get a hold of him. He was really gracious and getting back with me real fast, and he was just like, yeah, let's talk. So scheduling, which is the ultimate villain of podcasting, we found a time that worked for all of us, and off and running.
Yeah, this is one of those BOF After Dark shows for me, but it's the case where being super late is great for me, and folks on the West Coast like Wally, it just kind of works out perfectly. So
between the three of us, we have the entire country covered. You're East Coast, I'm Central, he's West Coast.
Yeah. So what I'm hoping is that when we get him on, it'll just be a good conversation. We'll talk to him about his career and the Riddler, and he's been in a ton of stuff. But as far as the Batman realm goes, he is the Riddler. In the Batman Arkham games, which is like the 3 core games, but there's also Arkham Underground, and there's also Arkham Origins. I would include Arkham Origins in that. So there's like 4 games.
Oh yeah.
And the 2 Batman 66 movies, and that's 2 different Riddlers. It's just not the same Riddler voice. It's like 2 completely different, performances and everything. So it should be a good conversation. So without further ado, let's get Wally on and see what he has to say about being the Riddler. Okay, and now we have our special guest for this episode. We have Mr. Wally Wingert, best known to probably listeners of this podcast as the voice of the Riddler across such things as the Batman Arkham games and the 2 recent Batman 66 animated adaptations. How are you doing, Wally?
Pretty excellent. How about you guys?
Great, doing good.
Fabulous. Freezing in Chicago, but aside from that,
Oh, it's raining
fabulous.
cats and dogs here, so
Not ideal
awesome.
weather for any of us.
no, not really. It's not necessarily sunny out, but again, it's 8:13 at night. It probably wouldn't be sunny anyway, so it's better that we get the rain and we fend off any threats of drought.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to ask Wally, like, if you could give us like a brief overview of like how you got into the industry and what led you to the path of the voice roles that you've done.
I moved out here to Los Angeles in 1987. I had a career going in radio as a radio DJ since I was about 16 years old. So I'd been in radio just a little over, about 10 years by the time I moved out here. And I'd always done some character voices on my radio shows and so forth and so on. Of course, I've done voices since I was a little kid because I used to love cartoons. Well, I still love cartoons, but I grew up loving cartoons and always imitated cartoon voices and did a lot of stuff. But I moved out here actually to be an on-camera actor in about 1987 and quickly fell out of love with that because it's just wasn't really for me. It was a lot of typecasting where they don't even really see your audition. They just make a judgment on you the minute you walk in through the door. And I said, well, I'm an actor. I can be anything. I can look like anything you want me to be, but don't judge me the minute I walk through the door. So it's kind of odd. But I got into voice acting through a friend of mine who had done a summer internship at a voiceover agency, and he said, I'll send your tape over. I said, that'd be great. So he sent my tape over that I created in the production room at my radio station that I was working at, and signed on with a small agent and moved on from there. So my very first thing, I think, was a job on The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
No way.
Remember that show? Yeah. I was a lottery announcer, so you heard me give the lottery numbers, and I thought, this is really great. So they give you all kinds of money. You show up and you stand there for about 15 minutes and you do your thing and off you go. So it was pretty awesome.
Well, so I was to lead into that. So you pursued a lot of like voiceover work, and your to scroll through your credits in IMDb takes only about 15 minutes. But I saw that also you did. Yeah, that's it. It's only 15 minutes. That you also voiced or did like the intros for The Tonight Show?
Yeah, I was the announcer on The Tonight Show for 4.5 years with Jay Leno, the last 4 years that he had the show. I started on the Jay Leno show as the announcer, and then when he was given The Tonight Show back in March of 2010, just most of the crew just stayed on from his Jay Leno show and just did their same jobs, but did it at a little like an hour later. So it was a dream come true. I mean, what can I say about that job? That was the job of a lifetime.
Yeah, isn't that pretty amazing to think back? Wow, I was a part of a big part of The Tonight Show.
Yeah, I was only the 7th full-time announcer in the show's history, and I thought that was pretty neat. And I was the only one to ever do it solely as a voiceover guy, where you never saw him. I was the Don Pardo of if you remember Don Pardo from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
You never saw Don Pardo, you just always heard him, and I thought that was really cool. So I got to be the Don Pardo of The Tonight Show, and they probably will never do that again, I'm guessing. You'll probably always they went right back to the in-studio announcer as soon as Jimmy Fallon took over.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of proud of that.
So you'd said, rewinding just a little bit, when you started to realize that you liked I showed up and I did my thing with my voice and then I was out of here. Were you pretty accepting at that point of like, listen, acting, I'm good with voice acting. I don't need to be in front of a camera. I'm fine.
Yeah, I really, like I said, when I fell out of love with with on-camera acting, I really fell out of love with it. I didn't like the casting procedures and how the whole thing went. And it was the group of voiceover people that I met, working, it was a much nicer group of people than the people who were working on camera, because the on-camera biz was very highly competitive, and they were And as soon as you walked into an audition, they'd look you up and down, and they'd give you the stink eye. But in voiceover, you'd hang out with everybody, and you go to read your part, and you'd laugh and tell stories and jokes. And sometimes when you weren't exactly right for a part, afterwards you tell the casting person, this wasn't really for me, but hey, who would really do good at this is my friend Rob. You should call him. And they go, oh, okay. And then call him, and then he'd get the job. And the same would happen, for me with somebody else. So it was a much more accepting, not as highly competitive group of folks, and I felt much more at home there.
Yeah, it sounds a little nicer, but also as if you're kind of judged on your talents.
Yeah, exactly. You're not judged by what you look like, and the nice thing about voiceover is you can be a 12-year-old kid, and then you can be a squirrel and an old lady, and you can be a garbage man, and you can be a wart, and you can be a toe fungus all in one day, and it's all good.
Like a chameleon.
Yeah,
a voice chameleon.
Exactly right.
I don't know if that's even a thing, but sure. Yeah, a voice chameleon.
Well, that was kind of how I wanted to do on-camera acting, because I was kind of still am a master of makeup, where I can do a bunch of different looks, and I have a bunch of different ways to alter my appearance. But they don't look at that when you walk in. They look at how you look as Wally Wingert, as opposed to the character that I was doing for them. And I just said, I'm not so much into this anymore. So Lon Chaney could never get work today. The man of 1,000 faces. They just would judge him as how he looked as Lon Chaney, and not give him any chances to perform any of his characters. So it's not really about acting anymore. It's about typing. Mm-hmm. They just want to type. And, we see that more and more and more now than ever, where they just go with the type that you already are. And it's just not, there's very little imagination in on-camera casting anymore.
So, is there, let's see, do you juggle or go back and forth between TV shows, movies, video games, or did you kind of start with one, move on to the other?
I was one of the guys in the industry. There's a few more of them now, but I was one of the few at the time who could do everything, who booked everything. Promos, commercials, commercial announce, commercial characters, animated characters, video game characters, and narrators. I would narrate something on the E channel, and then go over and do a voice for the Transformers cartoon, and then go do a session for a commercial, later on for salad dressing or something. So most people in voiceover either are really strong at booking animation and no commercial. Mm-hmm. So then you have your commercial people who book that and not really so much animation. And then you have your promo guys who pretty much only do that, or your narrators who pretty much only do that. But there's very little cross-pollination between all of those genres.
Do you have a favorite?
I don't.
A preference, more so than a favorite, but a preference, or?
I don't. I love it all.
Great.
Yeah.
What do you have to do, like in your process, in your mindset when you switch different mediums, like when you're doing an anime, for instance, versus a video game, or versus a more traditional American animated show? Or is it all kind of the same to you, or do you have to kind of prepare differently?
Well, they're all characters to me, no matter what I'm doing. The narrator that I'm doing on the E special is a character. The announcer that I did for the Tonight Show was a character. It's not me. It doesn't sound like me. It's an amplified, happier, sparkier kind of voice. Even the promo announcers that I would do were all essentially characters. They're not really me. One of the things that they say in the business is, we don't want him to sound like an announcer. We don't want him to sound like an announcer. Or he's an announcer. And I'd always say, well, I'm not an announcer, but I play one on TV. I do hundreds of announcer characters, because I can do several announcer characters that are all announcers, but they all sound vastly different. There's a young announcer, an older announcer, a slower announcer, a happier announcer, a rough announcer, a puking announcer with, they call that with the, hey everybody, good to see you, one of those guys. That sounds like he's about ready to cop a hairball.
Yeah.
But is there if you have so many voices and things, is there some that you have in your back pocket that you don't get to use much, but then all of a sudden there's that one thing that you book that you're like, oh man, it's perfect for that voice?
Well,
and
I
you
always
bust it out.
I've always said in my business, I've always said in my career, I used to have voices in my head, but then I got them all jobs. So there's still a few people in my head that haven't worked enough yet, but maybe they'll get their chance someday. But a lot of the voices in my head have gained full employment in the past, and I'm very happy about that.
Now, have you ever? Or how do you separate them? I guess would be the big question. So, like, have you ever gone into the booth and be like, oh wait, no, that sounds like something that I just did like last month, or was it never really a problem?
No, it's never a problem because I always visualize the face of each character.
Gotcha.
So as I'm doing it, I'm seeing the face in my head, even if it's a character that nobody's ever seen. Mm-hmm. I see it in my head, and I've given him a face, and some instances a name. For example, there was a 20th Century Fox animated film that I was doing called Space Chimp, I believe, and it was just a character that I had come up with many, many years before that, named Filbert Hardaway.
And it kind of talk like this. Hey, I'm Filbert Hardaway. Hello, everybody. I am here today to tell you how happy I am to see you.
And there was Splork was the character's name, and they said, hey, well, let's step up to the mic, everybody, and do Splork.
Hello, my name is Splork, but the Fresno, we are going to have to go avoid it at all costs.
So it was, they said, oh yeah, that's Splork. So anyway, so you just never know when you're going to put a particular guy to work, you know? it's kind of funny.
I mean, how fun is that?
Like just time,
now, you just hopped right into it and then hopped back out and then just talking like Wally again.
Oh yeah, no, well, that's, when I first started working on Family Guy, that was one of the things I really realized about what a great actor Seth MacFarlane is he could go from Stewie to Peter to Quagmire to Stewie to Brian to Quagmire to Stewie to Peter to flawlessly, like hitting a switch. Like if you had a control board of switches in front of you, and you're just hitting one, turning off the next one, hitting the next one, and instantaneously. And watching him go back and forth between these character voices was really kind of fun to watch. And that's when I realized that some of the best actors I actually know are not on-camera guys. They're actually voiceover guys who, know this craft, and they really know how to execute it well.
Yeah, so I apologize that I didn't even throw that in there either, that you're also a regular guy on Family Guy.
Well, I was first 3 or 4 seasons. Haven't worked on the show in quite a while. When Seth MacFarlane got busy with other stuff, he left it in the hands of other people, and those other people found other people to come do stuff. Plus, I wasn't as available as I had been because I was working on The Tonight Show, and I wasn't able to just drop everything and go over the hill and work for Family Guy. So, they eventually find other people to do the stuff if you're not available, and then they just moved on. So, which is fine because I've done hundreds of episodes of Family Guy, or hundreds of voices in Family Guy, and the first 3, 4, 5 seasons, and I'm happy that got a chance to do that.
So now leading into the main reason that we got a hold of you is that in August is the 10th anniversary of the release of Batman Arkham Asylum.
Yeah.
And there's a voice of a character in that game named Edward Nygma, the Riddler. And what a coincidence. That's another one of your guys.
It is. And he was, I remember the audition coming down. They were looking for something that was really, really, really far away from Mark's Joker. Mm-hmm. And they said it can't sound anything like Mark's Joker. And they really didn't do much with the Riddler. If you remember on the original Batman animated series, I think the Riddler was only in 1, maybe 2 episodes. He's
in just a couple, yeah.
Yeah, they hardly ever gave the Riddler any love because there actually was a lot of confusion amongst some of the casual Batman fans between the Riddler and the Joker, and the Riddler would get called the Joker and the Joker would get called the Riddler, because they were essentially kind of the same type, but Mark's Joker was so iconic. Mm-hmm. They said, well, we want to do some stuff with the Riddler, but we can't have him with the high-pitched giggle like the Joker. We can't have him anywhere near, so how about we make him kind of like a game show host, I think was the description on the script. And he'd chews over every word, and he loves to hear himself talk, and he's arrogant. And I said, boy, that sounds like a guy I used to work with in community theater back in the Midwest, who shall remain nameless. And I said, boy, that sounds exactly like him. And I'm like, I wonder if I amped him up just a little bit and gave him kind of a game show edge, what would it sound like if I basically just imitated him doing the lines? And then all of a sudden it became him, and I auditioned for it and got it. And because Riddler likes to chew over every single word he says because it's all extremely important, and if you don't understand it, you're a moron. There was this particular person that I kind of based it on was very, very, very sarcastic, but funny in a lot of ways. And he would look at our performance, and after we were done doing the play and we sat down for notes, he would walk back and forth and pick his beard, and he'd say, "I think we're up to performance quality." And he'd take a puff off his cigarette, and he'd go, "With the possible exception of Wally." That's him. And I said, "Oh yeah, that sounds like the Riddler to me." So they went with the Riddler, even though you never saw him in the first game.
Mm-hmm.
You just heard him in those tapes. But the writing on those tapes were so good, and Colette Sunderman, who was the voice director at the time, really helped to kind of craft that character and give him the peaks and valleys where he would be real calm and just kind of icily, deadly, and then the next minute he'd go nuts, just go off his rocker. So we liked it. And then the reaction was so great once the game came out that they said, "Oh, we gotta do more of this Riddler stuff. Let's, we're going to see him in this game." So I said, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And then, an action figure came out, and the different artwork started coming out, and it was really kind of cool to see, wow, I'm now part of the Batman legend, for not necessarily impersonating somebody else who's already in there, but this is my own take on it, and this is really kind of cool. So I enjoyed that considerably.
So yeah, that's what I wanted to backtrack just a little bit. If you can tell us just basically, how did you even hear about this game coming up and a character to audition for, and how did the start of it? How did you even hear about this game they're developing?
Oh, my agent at the time. They, the voice caster for the game always will send out what's called sides, snippets from the script that they will be listening to, and 300 guys could, all audition for this, and then they listen to 300 auditions, and then they pick, the 5 that they like, and then sometimes they have callbacks, sometimes they don't, and sometimes they say immediately, "Oh, that's our guy right there." So, pretty nifty. It's just the agents will distribute the copy accordingly, and people will nowadays record it at home and send it in via email. And you used to be where you would actually show up to a casting with, like I said, with all the other guys, and you'd hang out, and you'd chat, and you'd talk, and you'd rehearse your copy, and then go in and do your part, and off you go. But this was an audition that I had recorded at home, actually. And my agent called and said, "You're the Riddler." I was like, "What?" Pretty great.
Yeah.
So what was that? What was that like once you got the part? And because I'm a video game developer myself. I'm a visual effects artist, so I'm kind of on the other end of the spectrum. Developing the games like day in and day out. So it'll be interesting to get your perspective on this. So when they're making the game, like when you go in to record, how many times do you go in, and how much dialogue is there? Because games are, I think a lot of people undersell this, but it's not a trivial amount of work. It's a lot of times can be more than even a film, even, right?
It's a tremendous amount of work, and you never get to work hardly with ever any actors. other actors. It's just you for 4 hours, and you're yelling and screaming, and then you're whispering, and you're doing all this stuff. And a lot of it, if you're not trained on how to use your voice, you can lose your voice within like the first hour. It's really funny because a lot of these TV actors and these people who aren't really trained voice actors will go in and do these voices, and they're using a lot of celebrities for cartoons now. And the celebrities will go in for a 4-hour session thinking, oh, this is going to be a breeze, and then they put them through all these, hoops, and, after a half an hour, their voice is gone, and they still have 3.5 hours yet to go because they're not trained, they don't know how to do this. And they're like, wow, this is a lot of work, because they show up on a set for a TV show, and they get their makeup done, and they stand in front of the camera, and they say a couple lines, and they say, okay, cut, we're going to do lighting now for the next scene, and then they go to their trailer and read, or whatever for a couple hours, and then they go back and say a couple more lines, and then they say cut, and they go back. It's pretty easy. But this is actually quite a bit of work. You're on your feet for 4 hours, and you're going through a myriad of emotions and reactions, and you have to die about 1,000 different ways. Okay, now you're dying. Your head is on fire, but your body is not. But you have an arrow sticking out of your right kneecap, and your left ankle is broken. So, and action. So you got to do that. Okay, now you're on fire, but you're on fire down to your mid chest, and the arrow has now penetrated your knee even further, and now you have it just gets ridiculous of all the different options that they can run you through, and you have to make it sound correct. So it's it is a lot of work. Luckily, the initial Riddler sessions for the first game was all, like I said, those recordings that you could access from the psychiatrist, and you heard Batman, I think, arresting him at the end, breaking down the door, doing a bunch of this stuff. But you never really saw him, so it was a lot easier than a regular session. But I was also, in addition to Riddler, they also get a couple of other characters out of you. So I was also a guard, and I was a couple other people, and a scared guy, and some other things. So they would record those, and then they go through the Riddler lines. But then, if they decide that as the game develops further, they decide that they need to get some extra reactions, then they might have you come back in and do another hour's worth of work to get some other reactions, and then it disappears for a while, and you don't even think about it. And about a year later, the game comes out, and you're like, "Oh, that's what it was." And I don't really, I don't really play video games. I'm not coordinated enough, but I will go on YouTube if it's a game that I know I worked on, and see if there's people filming their gameplay.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, pretty exciting.
That's what I was going to ask. Did you get any kind of what do I want to say, like mock-ups of where they showed you what the game was kind of looking like, or were you kind of going in blind and just
going in blind?
Going in blind.
Going in blind. Yeah, they just basically give you the description of what it is. Unlike an animated show, when you're going in and they'll have your character model, all drawn up, and you can kind of see what your character's going to look like. This, pretty much as I remember, you're just kind of going in blind.
Did you get to see any part of the game before it was out?
Not the first one.
Yeah.
No, it was. I didn't even know what it would look like. I just assumed it was going to be similar to the animated series. And I thought, well, why didn't they get the guy who did the Riddler in the animated series to do this? But I guess it wasn't available or something, and they wanted a different take on it anyway. But because Mark was the Joker and Kevin was Batman, I figured it was just going to be, similar to the animated series. So, but yeah, lucky me. So,
yeah.
Well, what was interesting about that, like when you said something about how much stamina you have to go through those long sessions and maintain your voice quality, I was really impressed when, by the time you get to the third game,
Origins or Knight?
Arkham Knight.
Arkham Knight,
yeah.
Okay.
Because in that game, I don't know. I just think Kevin Conroy has such a good performance in that game, and it's so consistent. But there's a lot of dialogue out throughout the whole game, and I just kept thinking to myself, man, how much work did he have to do to and it's none of it's, of course, is phoned in. It's all I think one of his best Batman performances, and to me, it's just crazy that it's in a game because I know how much work that is.
Well, it's interesting because games actually sell more than TV shows or movies. So more people are watching those games than will watch a TV show or a movie. And he had, 3 or 4 seasons of Batman the Animated Series, and then a few seasons of Batman Beyond, and a couple of. So he knows that character so well by now that it's just, and he's such a great actor that it's second nature to him now. He's my second favorite Batman.
Yeah, I think he's a lot of people's.
Yeah.
But so, what did it feel like to actually do? So were you in all 4 games, the Arkham Origins as well?
Yeah, I played Ed Enigma before he was the Riddler. They had done some other casting with some actors who sounded younger because they went back in time, I think.
Yeah.
But they knew that I was able to make the Riddler sound younger and a little less confident because he hadn't really become the Riddler yet. He was still Edward Enigma, Eddie Nash, Edward Enigma, and he hadn't really become the Riddler quite yet. So they just directed me to make him sound a little less confident, a little less cocky, and younger. And I said, "Oh, that's easy to do." So we did that. So yeah, I think there was Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, then Arkham Origins, and then Arkham Knight. And there was a couple of others in there. There was Arkham Underworld and Arkham something else. But I know
there was the Blackgate.
I don't know. I know that there's a new Justice League Lego game out where I play the Riddler. Oh, there's a Batman There was a Batman VR. Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
And that was fantastic. I got to,
I heard
that
was
really
something.
good.
So it was Asylum, it was City, it was Origins, it was Underworld, and then it was Arkham Knight. I'm looking at a list, and then Batman VR and the Justice League Lego game. So that particular Riddler, I've been 6 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times.
You are almost like the definitive Riddler.
Well, I was comparing that against Frank Gorshin's appearances as the Riddler, and I thought, wow, that's I've appeared in more things than Gorshin as the Riddler, and he's what I consider the iconic, the quintessential Riddler.
Yeah,
I thought that's pretty cool. And
it's what's interesting is when you think about how those experiences go, it's not like the Riddler is in those games as a trivial part. He's like in the back of your mind the whole game, pretty much, because you're always finding. He's like he's the first and last thing you encounter.
He's always poking you and nudging you.
He's hidden all the riddles everywhere and like berating you.
now the guy who plays the guy on the TV show, is he still Eddie, or has he become officially the Riddler?
He's the Riddler now.
Oh, he is. Okay. So he's probably got the record for most appearances as the Riddler, I would guess now.
If you go episode by episode, I guess, yeah.
Yeah. So he's probably the winner.
Not in my eyes.
Oh, well, it's just cool to be a part of it.
Yeah,
it's just amazing.
So what is the do you remember when you first saw like the end result of Arkham Asylum? Like your voice to images?
Oh yeah, well I saw it on YouTube. And I was like, wow. And of course they added the stutter and the electronic effects and everything. Of course they don't tell you that when you're in there. They actually had the Riddler using some profanity in the original session. And
oh, wow.
I told Colette Sunderman, I said, yeah, I don't really do profanity. Can I just leave that out? And she's like, oh, thank you for saying that. Yes, you can leave it out. Because she is kind of of the same mind that you don't need the profanity.
Yeah, I was going to say, it doesn't seem like it's not needed.
But she can't say it as the voice director. But if the actor says, "No, I'm not going to do this," then it doesn't get done. So it was kind of a thing. And it just went on, and the Riddler didn't need to do that. So pretty sweet. But yeah, I credit her with helping to sculpt that character, that personality from the early stages. And she actually ended up leaving the games after a while because she got busy with a bunch of other stuff. She's one of the most in-demand voice directors in town now. So they went with some other directors, and Amanda Wyatt has been doing the last couple sessions as far as I remember. And it's always funny now because after having done the 2 new animated films as the Gorshin Riddler, when the agent calls and says, "Oh, they need you for the Riddler for something," I'm like, which Riddler?
Yeah.
Yeah. Is it Arkham Riddler or is it Gorshin Riddler? So it's kind of funny. We'll check. We'll get back to you. So it's kind of fun.
So how did that evolution happen? Once Arkham Asylum is a big hit and they start to make the second game, what kinds of now that your character is a little bit more fully formed and they have all this feedback and you can see the reaction, what kinds of things changed as the games went on?
His look. He had a similar look, which I thought he looked a lot like Hugh Laurie. You know, the actor Hugh Laurie. I thought he looked a lot like him. And then all of a sudden, in one game, he showed up looking like Charlie Sheen, which was bizarre. But hey, you know, whatever. And they said, well, we're experimenting with different Riddler looks, and I was like, oh, okay, that's totally cool. But I like how he looked kind of dirty and unkempt, and
yeah, because he's basically locked into his. Yeah.
And can you imagine how he must smell? Ugh. Good Lord.
Nope.
He just, sitting in his little room there for weeks on end, not eating, and he's skinny, and he just looks horrible, and he probably is greasy and stinky, and oh man.
Oh boy.
You never think about that when you're playing the game, but they don't have smell-o-vision,
Coming soon.
Oh, great.
The next
really
system. Good. It's gonna shoot out the front of the gaming system what it's supposed to smell like.
Right. All right, the next video game we're introducing is called Catbox.
No thanks.
No thanks.
So
yeah, that was the most noticeable change between the thing. Was like, why does he look so different?
Was it that hard of a sell for you to agree to come back for Arkham City?
Oh no, I was begging him to come back. I would do that. Don't tell him, but I would do that for free. But the high point of my whole Riddler existence was last Halloween when the Warner Brothers studio lot did a horror made here Halloween carnival.
I heard about that.
I wanted to go to
the Arkham Asylum, and they had a guy dressed up like the Riddler. He was a great actor, fit the part perfectly, and he looked identical to what you see. It looked like he popped right out of the video game.
Wow.
Very thin, dressed in the costume was perfect, and I could tell that he had studied the games and studied my voice because they invited us all to the opening night, so we could tour the facility, the maze. And when he popped out, I almost wept because I could tell that the kid was really trying to do my voice. And he popped out of the thing, and he's looking like he's right out of the video game, and he says, "Welcome, everybody, to my trap. Isn't this great?" And I'm like, wow, the kid really, he's imitating me. This is really cool. So it was kind of an honor. And,
how do you think he sounded in comparison to you? Pretty close?
I was impressed. And after everybody moved on to the next section of the maze, I stayed behind and shook his hand, and we got a couple pictures together and everything. So it was pretty neat, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was great.
So what was noticeably different from the first game into the second?
Like process-wise. You were talking about how he was a little bit more unformed and you got to help steer the direction a little bit. Well, they said that for the second game they were going to actually see him.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to add some physicality into it because I knew that he was going to be doing certain things physically as they were directing me, so I had to actually kind of do that so you could hear that in the voice, the struggle or the moving around or whatever. A lot of the stuff he's just on a screen, though, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really see his full body. I think in the very last game, Arkham Knight, don't you see him pacing around inside a jail cell?
Yeah.
And he's walking
you catch
around.
him in Arkham Knight, I think, yeah.
Yeah. And that was pretty cool. But for the most part, you just see him on a screen. And he's leaning in and he's doing different things, and so it was pretty cool. But yeah, not much different. They had refreshed my memory with what we had done for the first game, and took off from there. So now it's kind of second nature. I can just slide into it, slide out of it at will, which is kind of fun. But Yeah, I like him. He doesn't. I wish they could find some sort of venue to do him more, because I really like that world and I like those characters. And when I was in the Arkham Asylum maze, and they had the Penguin looking like the Penguin from the game, they had the Joker and looking and sounding like the Joker from the game, and Two-Face, I just kept saying, why don't they do this world as a movie? Why don't they do this as an animated movie with the same sort of animation and the same voices and the same thing? And it's kind of it's kind of fun to hear that in some of the instances where they have used another actor as the voice of the Riddler, that it hasn't been as successful, and the fans there was an outcry. And I think one of the things I read on YouTube, when they didn't use Tara, Mark, or myself as our characters, and they were doing some other project, I forget what it was, but the reaction on some of the people in the comments were, what, did Wingert ask for too much money? And I was like, I was never even asked. So I emailed Mark and Tara and I said, hey, they recast these parts for this. Were you even asked if you even wanted to do this? And Mark said, I was never even asked. And Tara's like, they never asked me. They just decided they were going to recast it. So the producers, for one reason or another, decide they want to work with certain people, and then they make the decision, and then the result comes out, and fans are like, what the heck is this? Yeah. So it's kind of cool to have that fan support after, several games where, and it was really nice to hear a lot of the comments for the Justice League Lego game that came out. Is it Justice League Lego game? What was the one?
Is it DC
the newest
Villains?
one. Yeah, that's the newest one.
What's
DC
it called?
Supervillains.
Oh,
Lego DC Supervillains. Yeah.
Oh, that's what it was. Yeah. DC Supervillains. Okay, let me write that down because I want to make sure it wasn't a Justice League. DC Supervillains game, but it was Lego, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Lego Super, and most of the games thus far, you just play the heroes and the villains are in it.
Right.
But yeah, it was cool that one you actually are a villain. It has got the villain creator, and you get to make your own guy and
that was
interact with all the DC.
And Mark
characters.
Was the Joker, and
yes,
yeah, okay, cool, yeah, that was a lot of fun because it was a Lego thing. He wasn't going to look obviously like the usual, but that was really cool because they did go back to the original voice actors, and it was really nice to see the reactions to that on YouTube and the trailer of people saying, oh yes, they got all the right guys back and all the right women back and all the right girls, and everybody, it's the right cast now, and they're not futzing with it anymore. So that was kind of nice to hear. The kindest comment I had ever heard on one of the comments, I shouldn't read comments on YouTube. One of the nicest comments I read was, Wingert is to the Riddler what Hamill is to the Joker. And that was like, I said, I wish I could screenshot this and frame it, because that's the nicest comment I think I've ever heard.
So I haven't gotten to come across this game or see anything or listen to anything, but is it your Arkham Riddler, basically?
For DC Supervillains?
The voice-wise, yeah.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Well, that was the one where they called and said they need you for the Riddler for a game, and I said, well, which Riddler? And they said, we'll check, and I think they checked with, Liam O'Brien was the one who was directing that game, and they kept playing me the references for the Arkham Riddler, and I said, oh, okay, I totally get it. But yeah, it was. Another nice, really nice comment was, when I read the comics, I hear Wingert's voice as the Riddler.
Yeah.
Wow, that's really, as a comic book, fan as a kid myself, because I would hear Adam's voice as I would read Batman comics, and Bert's voice when I'd read Batman comics as Robin, and Cesar Romero and all those great actors. So that meant quite a bit to me. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I can see that. I would say that when I read comics and I see the Riddler, I hear your voice too, because it's not so outlandish that it can only ever be that one version of the Riddler. The Gorshin Riddler is pretty specific.
Yeah.
But the Arkham Riddler, I think, is a good base that you could probably just list. That's why it kind of sticks, I think. And that's kind of why it is now a little bit more iconic, and because it's been like the standard Riddler that you hear for hours.
I was just going to say, for each of those games, for hours and hours, you hear Wally just popping in, yelling stuff at you.
I still have one Riddler challenge left to go in Arkham Knight, and it's that dang floor that's electrified, and you're having to beat up the robots as Catwoman, and you just hear the Riddler over and over again telling you how awful you are.
I gave up. I've never beat the Arkham Knight Riddler stuff. It pissed me off.
I'm on the last one. It's so hard.
What is it? Over 3 years now I've been trying, and I just can't do it. Even with the cheat stuff online, I'm like, nope, I'm good.
It's so funny when I run into people. They're like, "You're the voice of the Riddler?" I'm like, "Yeah," and they go, "I hate you." I said, "Good, then I did my job."
Yep.
It's funny because I'm the voice of American Airlines, so when you fly, you'll hear me.
Oh my gosh!
Talking about safety instructions, but it's another character. It's a different character, completely different character. But there's a little bit of the voice print that still comes through, the common voice print. So some people will record as they're sitting on the plane, hearing the announcement going, "The Riddler is telling me how to fly in this airplane," and it's really bizarre. And but it's like I said, it's quite a different character than, of course, the Riddler. But there's still a commonality in the voice print that shows through. So it's kind of funny.
So how did it feel once Arkham Knight was done, or maybe even Arkham VR, because those are kind of like the capstone to this whole giant Arkham universe? Did it feel like a big
Arkham
accomplishment? Yeah.
Yeah, I was not ready. I told Amanda Wyatt in the session for, I think, Arkham Knight. I said, I'm going to hate letting this guy go. I'm going to miss this guy. And she says, "You know what? There will always be something." So I'm like, okay, well, your mouth to God's ears. That would be really awesome. So if one of these came up, every year or every other year, I'd be really happy to do this till the end of time. So I just hope that.
Yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you. Is another one coming, Wally?
Not that I've been involved in. I'm my Riddler. My last Riddler job was the Supervillains game.
Yeah.
Right. I have not done anything since. Darn. Because
Yeah.
you fall in love with these guys. You do them and you have a lot of fun. And I don't know if you ever got to see the Arkham Underworld video that they shot of us actually in the studio.
It's on
doing
YouTube.
These characters. Yeah, exactly. But it's such a great time to stand in front of that microphone and just be free and read the lines off the screen and just go. And sometimes these lines aren't really easy on the tongue. Mm-hmm. The way they write them, I swear there's a guy who looks a lot like Edward Nygma sitting in a dark room writing these lines for these video games. And because with a thesaurus next to them. We've had to actually stop the session and figure out pronunciations and the way and what does this word mean? It's okay. Well, hold on. Let's use it in the right context. And we're stopping and looking at it. Oh, it means this, and it's pronounced that way. Okay, good. Okay. So some of the writing is even too smart for us dumb actors. So it's pretty interesting. But it's just a lot of fun to be so free and try and figure out. Where would the Riddler go on this? Would he be happy? Would he be mad? Would he be quiet? Would he be, egocentric? Would he, how would he approach this? And sometimes he does all 4 or 5 in the same line. He just goes bounce, bounce, bounce to all different emotional levels, which is pretty cool. So
the Joker's my favorite villain, but the Riddler is no joke always been just like a couple steps behind. And I'd imagine that in your shoes, it'd always be fun and challenging just for the fact of, as you comment in that video on YouTube about the writing is just like really sharp, and there's always just who knows what content the Riddler or the riddles are going to contain, and then he just has this wit about him, and he's also kind of like a little shit, and stuff. He's got that to him, and it's just like, though yes, I feel like you're playing the same guy in every game, but it always kind of developing, and it's never like, oh, this is exactly what I got the last game. There's always just something new to it. So I just imagine that would be fun every time you go in the studio.
It is, and I think that's probably why they move his look around a little bit, just to keep things fresh, so it's not exactly the same guy. I think they also did that with the Joker a little bit. He changed from game to game to game. But boy, I would love nothing more than to do this either in this world as a feature film or as a new series.
Yeah.
With this world of characters, with Kevin and Mark and everybody who does the voices for the games. And
They did. I was going to say they did do Batman Assault on Arkham a few years ago, which is set in the Arkham universe, but it was more like of a Suicide Squad story.
But they used Conroy, but then didn't bring back any of the Arkham voices, which was kind of weird.
Oh, that might have been the review that I read for that, where people were like, "What the heck is this? These aren't the right voices." So I don't think that. I'm not sure
if
that was very successful or not, but I don't follow that stuff very closely. But based on the reviews and the reactions that I had heard initially, it was not a good move. But,
you were missed.
Well, thank you very much. I think that was the one where they didn't cast Mark either, and they didn't cast Tara. I think that might have been the one that we were talking about, where they said, "Oh, maybe Wingert wanted too much money or something," and no, that's not really the case.
It just seems so weird that they'd get Batman, and I think you'd just assume, oh, then that must mean they're bringing everybody.
Yeah,
and it's like, nope.
Well, different producers have different people they want to work with, and they have the prerogative to do that. And if the game, is successful, then they can say, "See, I told you." And if it wasn't successful, then they don't really work again. So it's just it's their prerogative to choose who they want to work with, and their merits live or die based on that decision. So whatever.
I think
it would be.
Go ahead,
It would
Ryan.
be cool to see. It would be cool to see more from the Arkhamverse, because we have the games and we had that one movie, and there's actually been a ton of comics. Like DC's done actually a really good job of expanding the lore of that. They call it the Arkhamverse, in the comic book form, and since you do have to wait 2, 3, 4 years between games, it would be nice to have some sort of more that explores it. Like you said, a animated series or at least an animated movie. I would love that.
If the fans want it and the fans demand it, it will happen. So strangely enough, the superhero world of DC's, the feature films are less, I feel, respected than their animated films. Their animated films are just off the wall great. Virtually every one they do it has its own unique identity and its unique style, and it's because of a guy named James Tucker who delivers a lot of that stuff and who drives a lot of that, and he's fantastic. And he was the one that drove the 66 reboot films, Return of the Caped Crusaders and BV2F, Batman vs. Two-Face. Yeah. And he has such an insightful knowledge of these characters and these worlds, and he really knows how to drive it, and he knows this world so well. That's why their animated films are all, really terrific, and highly critically acclaimed and highly acclaimed amongst the viewers and the fans as well.
Yeah, so let's hop into that. So much like I'd asked earlier, as far as hearing about the Arkham game and that role, how did you hear about what they were doing? This ambitious move, but then it was like this really awesome move of, we're going to do an animated film in the 60s universe with Adam West and Burt Ward coming to voice their characters.
Well, Adam had mentioned something at a convention, and I don't know if he was really allowed to mention that I think he mentioned something during a panel that, Burt and I are going to be reprising our roles in an animated film. And people were like, what? So, of course, the 66 Batman universe, of which I'm a member, was all abuzz with, what are they, an animated film? So I asked around, nobody seemed to know anything. I asked my agent, I asked everybody I knew. So I have a friend named Ruben Procopio, who is a former Disney animator, and he's an animator for a lot of different studios, but he had started doing a lot of work for Warner. And he had said, and he's a Batman 66 fan as well, and he had said, hey, I just got hired to storyboard the animated film starring Adam West and Burt Ward. I was like, wow. I said, if you could get me, I'd like to do an audition for that. If you could get my tape in front of the producer, that would be really great. And he said, yeah, I'd totally do that. So I listened to a lot of Frank Gorshin, because Frank was kind of a friend of mine. He had been to my house, and we were friendly, and I'd see him at voiceover auditions and all kinds of stuff. So I'd seen him on numerous occasions. He knew me, and I knew him.
Oh wow!
And it was pretty great. And when he was at my house in May of 2004, I think it was about a year before he passed away. He was dying of emphysema, a lifetime smoker, and he was trying to cut down on his cigarette intake. So he had a yellow box of American Spirit cigarettes with one half cigarette left. So we were over here sitting on the couch, had a bunch of people over, and we were watching Batman episodes, of High Diddle, Riddle, Smack in the Middle, and he was commenting on different things, and it was a magical evening. But he stepped outside to smoke the remaining cigarette, a half cigarette, and he did it, and he came back, he says, anybody have any cigarettes? And I said, oh no, Frank, I think we're all allergic, and nobody smokes here. He goes, oh, okay. So he threw the American Spirit cigarette box in my trash can, and we continued watching the show, and then the evening broke up, and everybody left, and I looked in the trash, and there's that American Spirit cigarette box, and I said, I'm going to save this, and I don't know why I'm going to save it, but I'm going to save it. So I saved it, and then when he passed away, I kind of used that as a little memorial in my display case with his birth date and the date of his death, Frank Gorshin, whatever. And I put that in my display case, which sits up here by my computer system where I do my auditions.
Wow.
So I'm it's a warm evening. It's very warm out, so I have the windows shut and I have the air conditioner on. And it's a Sunday evening, pretty late. I like to do my auditions late at night, so it's nice and quiet outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sitting here, doing the auditions, and I'm looking at Frank Gorshin videos on YouTube and trying to get his voice and writing down certain lines. Of course, the Batman TV soundtrack that came out on the album in 1966 was... I wore the grooves out of that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I knew that frontwards and backwards, all those lines that they had. And they had the actors' voices and then some of the incidental music from the show. So I did, some of that, and I was working on his voice, and I was looking at the YouTube clips, and I was just thinking, oh man, what a great guy. He's so talented, so amazingly talented, and what a waste, and what a short life. And I said, boy, I miss him. Then I thought about the night he was over here, and I recorded a couple lines, and then I started smelling cigarette smoke. And I thought, oh man, somebody's standing outside my window smoking a cigarette. That's really rude. So I go to my window, and I realize, oh, the window's closed because the air conditioning is on, and I'm recording, and I never have the windows open when I'm recording because of the sound. But also it was hot, and I didn't want to be hot, so I thought, well, that's odd. How am I smelling cigarette smoke if the windows are closed? Oh, well, whatever. All right, well, it's gone now, so I'm going to sit down and finish my audition. And then I started thinking to myself, well, that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
How would I look outside, nobody's there. The window's closed anyway. Nobody's standing on my roof of my house blowing cigarette smoke down through my air conditioning unit. How was I smelling cigarette smoke for, 30 seconds as I was doing this? Did my sympathetic vibrations, as they say in the Disney Haunted Mansion ride, summon, the spirit of Frank Gorshin? Was he standing beside me smoking his cigarette, saying, go get him, kid, that kind of thing? I don't know, but it just seemed like kind of an eerie visitation had occurred. And I thought, wow, that's kind of heavy. Because I couldn't explain any other reason why I smelled cigarette smoke for that 30 seconds. But
Wow.
I auditioned, and I had some music put behind it, and Ruben gave it to James Tucker, the producer, and then pretty soon, within the couple days after that, my agent had sent me the Riddler and Alfred and a couple other characters, and I said, well, I don't do a good Caesar Romero, and I'm not really a good Alfred the Butler, but boy, I think I kind of would really love to do this Riddler. So then I got cast. So that was pretty awesome. And I was like, wow, thanks, Frank. Thanks, Frank. But
Wow.
it's just so funny that Frank made his living as an impressionist. And now here's somebody impersonating him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he probably just had to come back from the great beyond just for a little while just to see how this guy was impersonating him.
Blow some smoke in your face.
Yeah, and blow smoke in my face. And, well, it's... there was all kinds of stories about, I think my grandma was here because she always ate this
Yeah.
specific type of,
Oh yeah.
oatmeal, and I smelled oatmeal, or I smelled a certain type of perfume, and I haven't had that perfume in the house for 20 years, but I just smelled that perfume, and I think that she was here. So you just never know. But it sure was eerie. Sure was eerie.
So how was it kind of the same recording session or style there, and that you were just recording by yourself, or did they bring in other cast members?
No, that one was again just by myself.
Yeah.
Because Adam had so much to do, and Bert had so much to do, and Julie had so much to do, that they recorded them separately. So they just decided to record everybody separately. But Wes Gleason, the voice director, knew these performances so well that he could direct me accordingly. So once they put everything together, it didn't sound like we had been recording separately. Have you ever seen those movies where or those animated films, you can just tell they were recorded separately because they don't sound like they're talking to each other?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they didn't want to have happen. And because Wes is so darn good, he was able to kind of mold and drive our performances into sounding like we were right there with whomever, because it was a lot like the way Seth MacFarlane did it when he was directing Family Guy. At first season of Family Guy, Seth was just a voice actor. He was the creator, but he wasn't the director. He was just a voice actor. He would go in, he would be directed by I can't remember his name now, David, would direct him. But then Seth became the voice director, but he had already recorded his stuff, but he knew how he recorded it, so when he would direct you, he would tell you essentially how it was said so you could respond to it accordingly, so it would sound, cohesive. Same way with Wes. He knew that how Adam had said these things and how everything had gone on before I had gotten there, so my delivery was going to just fit in completely well, and the other actor's delivery was going to fit in completely well, and we would all gel together like a magnificent jigsaw puzzle. So, because when you hear that movie, and if you just take your eyes off the animation, it sounds like we're all talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
It's magnificently, directed, and hats off to Wes for doing that, because it fooled the world.
Yeah. I mean, so did you was that in one big session, or did you have to do that a couple of different sessions to get that movie done?
There was one big session, and then we came back to do what's called ADR. Once they get most of the animation finished, they do additional dialogue recording, where there's little punches and little incidental things that they put into the animation that you don't anticipate when you're doing the initial session, but the Riddler needs to go oof or or
the fight scenes.
A little giggle or whatever here and there.
Yeah. And what was that like, getting actually to see what that would look like for the first time?
Again, I almost wept. I was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. This is amazing. And I wanted to tell the world about it, but of course you can't, because you can't.
Yeah.
It's the NDA, non-disclosure agreement. You can't tell anybody about it. I mean, everybody knew it was in the offing and who the cast members were at that point. But you have to save all that knowledge as a secret until the studio says it's okay to go ahead and do it. So it was pretty amazing, pretty.
Yeah, I remember as fans, it was such an exciting thing to actually get new Batman 66 content, basically. And that's, for years we had wanted something like that. If they would just bring him back and do an animated film, and we got 2 of them, which I thought was like, more, as good as you could get, really. I was wondering, like, did they do both of those animated films at once, or did you come back later and ended up doing the Batman vs. Two-Face separately?
We did Batman vs. Two-Face separately because they weren't even sure there was going to be a second one, but because of the popularity of the first one, then and only then did they decide to do a second one. And I always thought, are you a fan of the TV series? Do you know this TV series?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My favorite character in there was, one of my favorite villains was False Face.
Yeah.
And Malachi Throne was a good guy, a dear friend, and just terrific guy. And it was fabulous because his son, Zach Throne, sounded a lot like him, or sounds a lot like him, still does. He's got that really deep voice, but Zach's a guitar player in Vegas. He plays all kinds of shows, and not the least of which the main Michael Jackson impersonator show. If you go see a Michael Jackson impersonator, chances are it's Zach Throne playing guitar. So, but Zach, I've known Zach and through his dad, and it's pretty amazing that he sounds so much like him. That I said to James, I said, for the third one, if you do a trilogy, what you ought to do is you ought to bring Falseface in. You should have Zach Throne do the voice, because he can sound exactly like his dad. And you have him start a TV network called False News.
Oh, man.
And his thing is just, peppering Gotham with all this false news that you never really know what's true and what's not. It's funny. So, but of course, Adam passed away, and there was really not any reason to do another one.
Yeah.
So
the impetus is kind of gone after that, because we even when we reviewed Batman vs. Two-Face on our show, we had asked that question, like, would you want to see more of these, or should they kind of stop it there? And I think we were kind of split on it. Some people were like, well, it's too good. Batman 66 is too good not to keep going some way. But on the other hand, some other, the rest of us were like, well, but Adam West kind of is Batman 66, and it kind of wouldn't feel right without him.
It wouldn't feel right. I wouldn't want to hear another guy come in and do it or imitate Adam. And there are some really good Adam imitators out there. I've heard a couple of them, and it's like, wow, that's dead on. But I don't know. He's just the figurehead for that whole genre, that whole particular part of Batman, and it would be really tough to not have him as part of that, and it would be tough, I think. So they probably made the right decision not to continue.
So how did it for that Batman versus Two-Face? How did it come about for you to do the Riddler, but also King Tut?
Well, during the initial session for Return of the Caped Crusaders. Remember they busted out a lot of the villains, and they're all kind of in a group there. And James Tucker, who knows the Batman 66 series as well as I do, maybe not quite as well as the studio engineers and some of the other people there, and Wes Gleason, but we know it like the back of our hands. So James and I were going back and forth almost like we were speaking a language from the old country that nobody knew. He said, okay, well, there's going to be this big group of all the Batman villains that they bust out, and I said, well, who? He said, so can you cover a couple of those? I said, well, who else is going to be there?
Oh, man.
And I said, is Falseface going to be there? Oh, yeah, he'll be there. Okay. And really, all the anything they said was huzzah, huzzah.
Yeah.
So I was doing my best Falseface, huzzah, huzzah. And I said, well, who else is there? Is Bookworm there? Oh, yeah, Bookworm's there. Okay. Huzzah! Huzzah!
That's pretty good.
Thanks. Yeah. And I said, who else is it? King Tut there? I said, yeah, King Tut's there. Okay. Huzzah! Huzzah! So when I saw that Tut was going to be in the next thing, I'm like, oh, wow, I'd like to audition for that. And they said, oh, no, you're already King Tut. We already picked you. So I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. I better brush up on my Victor Buono. So I did, and I brushed up on it quite a bit and looked at all the episodes and started to kind of...
Yeah, he was in quite a few episodes of the 60s show.
He was
like
in
Falseface was only on one.
Yeah,
one or
I know.
Two, right?
Yeah, because Malachi didn't like the masks that they made him wear.
Right.
Oh, those damn masks. They were supposed to be makeup effects, and it was going to be brilliant character acting, and they gave me these stupid Halloween masks, and I said, never again. I love that character. I love Falseface. So, but yeah, the Tut thing kind of rolled around, and I showed up. Of course, I had the videos, the Blu-rays had come out, and I had them in my little player with me, so I could refer to them during the sessions. So they were quite happy with what we'd come up with. So it was pretty fun, and the fact that he gets to go into McElroy as well was a lot of fun, and having a scene with both Adam and Shatner. So that's
pretty awesome.
I'm like, okay, I can retire now. I'm done. I'm done. I've had a scene with, even though Shatner wasn't there when I was doing my thing, I would record separately, but on screen we're together. And I said that's pretty cool. A scene with Adam and a scene with Shatner in the same movie. I'm good. Yeah. So
that's cool.
Yep.
I completely forgot as the Riddler in the Return of the Caped Crusaders. Don't don't you yell out a huzzah as the Riddler at some point?
Oh yeah, exactly.
That cracks me up every single time.
Mark Hamill, when he saw those movies, he couldn't wait to see those movies. And I said, Mark, you got to audition.
Oh, yeah.
You got to audition for the Joker. Can you do Cesar Romero? He said, I don't really do impressions, but yeah, I'm sure they'll find somebody. But he said, I sure want to see this. And the thing that he noticed about the movies when he saw it was how bare the streets of Gotham are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's just not a lot of activity going on. And he says, I can't believe... Yeah. There's few people, but yeah.
Inconsistencies because there were weird things like, and we kept wondering why certain things looked slightly off. Like Commissioner Gordon didn't look exactly correct,
Well, there's a reason for that.
Was it the likeness right?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Ding, 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 right on the nose. Yeah, there were certain things that they could replicate that were protected, imagery of Warner Brothers. And there was other stuff that was exclusive imagery of 20th Century Fox that they could not do, which is why Commissioner Gordon had a mustache and Alfred didn't. As opposed
they were switched.
Yeah, as opposed to the other way around. And I don't know if I was actually there looking at one of the animators drawing some of the scenes for the Batman vs. Two-Face. And he opened up I think it was the Frank Gorshin that they had done that looked a lot like Frank. And I think that I was there when they got the call from the attorney saying, no, it looks too close to Frank Gorshin, you got to change it. So then I saw him go into the computer and move his mouse around and change the shape of the face a little bit, change the hairline, so it wouldn't look too much like Frank Gorshin. So the family, couldn't litigate. But
wow.
they were walking the line there with what they could and couldn't do. So it was interesting.
That's just nuts to me because it's like they're as far as you're able to go, and then it's like, but wait, hold up on this one, hold up on this part, hold up on this part.
Well, it's all, as I understand it, it's all the call of attorneys, and they'll make the decision whether it's you're able to do it or not.
Yeah,
and
but just at the end of the day, though, really, just the fact that. Because for a long time, we thought we were never going to see the show on Blu-ray or DVD or anything. And now we've got the entire Batman 66 on Blu-ray, and we have these two wonderful animated films complete with Adam West and Burt Ward and Julie Newmar and Lee Merriweather even. So I think those are great that we have them now.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Well, we needed them. And for years and years and years, Entertainment Weekly would always say, what's the most wanted DVDs that people want, and the Batman TV series was always right up there with Wonder Years. That people really wanted that Batman series, and the fact that it came out on Blu-ray, so it's crystal clear.
It looks better than it ever has before.
Yeah, really a gift. Yeah, really a gift. So
while many think that's cool that you were on the voice in two movies that Adam West also did. You and I have talked before that you actually have a decades-long relationship with Adam West.
I first met Adam in 1980 when he came to Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I was a radio DJ, and I said, I got to meet Adam West, and we were friends ever since. And he suggested, me, well, you got to, if you really want to be an actor, you got to move out there. And so we stayed in contact, and he was very encouraging. And I've known Adam. I had known Adam for 37 years. So if in 1980 at that car show, that World of Wheels car show, if somebody would have come up from the future and said, hey, psst, kid, come here. Did you know that you're going to be doing a voice in Adam's final appearances as Batman in the future? I'd be like, get out of here. I would have never dreamed it was ever possible. But it was pretty sweet. Yeah, pretty great.
That part is
and I know.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that I know that Adam and Frank were good friends as well in real life.
Yeah.
And for him to be so complimentary after the first movie came out was really kind of nice to hear as well.
Yeah, and I want to direct and tell anybody that listens that on your wallyontheweb.com website that you have an Adam West tribute story written on there.
Oh, yeah.
Basically going through the whole, tons of pictures with you and Adam West and just going through the years and your a few of your backstage interviews as you were a radio DJ. I mean, this is just an awesome story to show that it's not that you had just a close relationship with Adam West. I just think that's just awesome.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and his I used to call him up for radio interviews when I was in Sioux Falls and he was in Idaho, and there was a little girl screaming in the background, and he'd say, "Nina, be quiet now, Dad's on the phone." And now she's 30 and she's married and she's completely happy, and her husband James Tooley did a movie called Starring Adam West, which I was in and interviewed in and had a section in where Adam and I are sitting there talking about when we first encountered each other, and it was a fun story. That's those stories are for another show though, because that's a show in and of itself. Wow,
it's a 5-part series.
A lot of great stories there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, did you get to talk to Adam like before, during, or right after the first animated 66 film was out to get his take on it?
Oh yeah, no, he was happy with it. He thought it was great, and he was happy to be doing it again, and he thought everything was terrific. And Julie sounded fantastic, and Bert sounded fantastic, and I think it just all came together. The writing was amazing, and when that Batmobile sped around the corner and pulled the Yui right in front of Commissioner Gordon's office and parked, we all stood up in the theater and cheered. That one was released in the theater for a day.
Yeah.
I saw it. Yeah, I
Fathom
went there.
Events. Yeah, Fathom Events released it in the theater for a day. So I bought a bunch of tickets, and we all went to dinner, and there was 30 of us, and we all went to the thing, and my folks were in town, and my old Bat buddies, Dave and Chris. Dave still lives in South Dakota. Chris is now out here as an actor. But we all got together. We called ourselves the Bat Pack when we were living in South Dakota. They were all here. We all saw the thing, and then I bought tickets just for Dave, Chris, and I to see it again, just us three, for the 10 o'clock show, and it was fun. So just sitting there could not believe, what we had just done. And then they had like an on-camera interview with us that played after the movie, which was
that's right. Yeah. It was that was we had like 3, I think, Batman movies to see in a theater that year. There was Batman v Superman, and there was also the Killing Joke, and I think we also got to see and there was also Return of the Caped Crusaders, and I think for me that was the thing I had the most fun with. Just being able to go to the theater and see that and have that show come back, I thought was just kind of.
I mean, it totally different tones of Batman vs Superman, really dark Killing Joke, a really dark comic book, and then the '60s series.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that's what's so great about Batman is that he works in all these different forms and still kind of holds up. And for whatever reason, that year in 2016, we were able to see all those like in the theater. If you were able to see it on the the 1 or 2 day things that they had, I thought that was pretty awesome.
And it was great because, like I said, my folks were in town, so not only did they get to hear me do this character that they had heard me, imitate many times when I was a kid playing that record album over and over and over. And of course, they let me watch Batman whenever I wanted to as a kid. They bought me the Batman mask and cape and the T-shirt and everything when I was a kid. So, but they also got to see me on the big screen in the interview segment at the end, and I don't think my parents had ever seen me on a big movie screen before like that. So that was kind of interesting. So the magic of Hollywood.
Yeah,
it's all charm.
And so I guess my last question about those movies is like, were the filmmakers really trying to get like as close as they could to the original voice actors, or was it more like it's really great that you can sound close to Frank Gorshin, like for you and for the other villains?
I think that they wanted to get as close as they could, and they sometimes had guys that I think pretty much everybody sounded pretty darn close to how the original guys sounded. Alfred sounded great. Man, Harry was off the charts great.
She was hilarious.
And Jim Ward did a great Commissioner Gordon with the mid-Atlantic accent. Of course, Batman! That kind of thing that he would do. But the voice actors really locked into those old, voices, I think, quite well. And if they couldn't match it perfectly, at the very least, they brought the tone to it and the spirit and the energy to it.
Yeah.
And Jeff Bergman and Cesar Romero was off the charts amazing. And I thought everybody was. I totally bought that was the '66 series. 50 years later. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably as good as anybody could have done to resurrect it.
Yeah.
And with that team and with the voices, I thought it was really great. My favorite part of that first movie is when Adam West finally gets to say, like, "You want to get nuts?"
Yeah.
from the '89 movie.
Yeah.
And then the best thing was like the reaction that like the Riddler and Joker have, where they're just like freaking out because that Batman is all of a sudden super serious and they don't know how to take it.
Yeah.
It was like the best thing. I laughed out loud in the theater. It was so awesome.
Yeah. No. Well, the whole theater was laughing at several points through the movie. It was brilliantly written and put together, and it was magical. When they have William Shatner in the second one as Two-Face, oh my gosh, perfect casting. He was great as Two-Face, and hearing him and Adam together, even though you couldn't see them on screen together, just hearing them together, because that's the all-time fan favorite is Adam and Shatner doing something together. And
what was great was that he could have played Two-Face in the 60s, and it would have made total sense. It would have been perfect then.
Absolutely.
That's why it just seems so credible to have him voice that character. I thought that was great.
And I love that he looked like the Filmation Captain Kirk. Like
exactly.
They drew him to look like the Filmation Captain Kirk with the hairstyle, same hairstyle, and the same kind of face with the little upturned corners of the mouth. It was really, really quite amazing. So. I was well done. It was just too bad that it couldn't continue, but we got two movies out of it, and it was an honor to be involved, and it was really something.
I think for Batman fans, especially now, that's just like it's an extension of the series, so it's always going to be the Batman '66 series and also the two animated movies. It's like I don't think it's ever going to be two different things or forgotten. It's like no, this is part of that beloved history of Batman now.
Yeah, and
don't
cool. Forget the Legend of the Superheroes and the Celebrity Superhero Roast. You have to throw those.
I've got that on DVD over here.
Yeah, they're somewhat canon as well now, so like it or not. So.
Yeah, so how does that make you feel now that you're part of two major? Because I don't think it's wrong in saying that the Arkham series is like it's a big stamp in Batman history.
Yeah.
Like there are certain universes of Batman over the 80 years this year, and I think Arkham games are part of it. And then now you're a part of the Batman '60s series. I mean, how does that feel?
Well, it's a dream come true. It's as a kid, to be able to, have these shows to watch and these comic books to read and the Big Little Book and all the little stuff that I used to have as a kid, and then to someday actually be these guys and now be part of Batman legend forever is absolutely a dream come true. And I would have been happy just to be one character, but now I got to be two characters, the same character, but two different versions of it in the Batman universe, and it's just more than I could have ever possibly asked for. So it's just I don't know of any really other actor who has gotten to do the same character but different incarnations of the character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Kevin Conroy could be that because he could be Batman from the animated series and then the games, but it's kind of the same. It's not as
he got to be a Batman. He's Batman in like the Lego games and in Justice League Action as well.
Right.
Which is a slightly different version, but it's the same Batman voice. So it kind of so I get what you're saying. Yours is like a completely different iteration, which I think is pretty
two completely
great.
different ones. So I mean, it's not like one guy does the Penguin where he does Burgess Meredith and then he also does like a different completely different Penguin. It's so it's interesting. So I'm kind of blessed in that way that it's like, well, I'm Riddler's. I'm the Riddler's.
Yeah.
So I have people send me requests for signed photos and I have a really great composite photo of the two Riddlers standing together.
Oh, nice.
I always sign it, Riddle us this. So anyway, it's been a lot of fun, guys. It's thank you so much for this. It's been a lot of great memories and a lot of great and wow, 10 years, 2009 to 2019, and time flies, man.
Well, I
Yeah,
can't
it's insane.
thank you enough for giving us your time. I know that there's going to be a ton of people that will appreciate listening to this and getting to hear your, the inside scoop on the recording process, and just hearing you name drop so casually of hanging out with Frank Gorshin and Adam West, and and you're on a first name basis with Mark Hamill. That's up there. I mean, it's just going to be it's going to be a treat for people to listen to. So.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, we appreciate it.
Oh, yeah, thanks. It's just funny because it sounds like, to some people it would sound like name dropping, but I can't not tell these stories without including those people because they were an integral part of this stuff. And it's not like I ran into them at a party. It's like, no, these people, they came over to the house. And they've, Adam, Frank, Mark, they've all been over. And yeah, that's just who we hang out with. But, I mean, I don't hang out with Mark anywhere nearly as much as I like because he's got a family, he's got stuff. But we both are insane Laurel and Hardy fans. I'm trying to get him to come to a Sons of the Desert Laurel and Hardy Appreciation Society meeting sometime because it's fun to watch these films with a group of people all laughing and all enjoying it at the same time.
Right.
And so but he's busy and he's got a bunch of stuff going on. But yeah, that's just. We just happen to have a lot of stuff in common, and as I do with my friends who aren't famous. So. It's it is. It's part of the charmed existence here in Hollywood, California.
So, as we always like to ask anybody that's on, is there anything that you'd like to plug or tell people where, like, to follow you on Twitter or go to websites or anything like that where people can get
or any projects or anything that's coming up?
Anything you want to say.
Well, nothing I can talk about now because we have these little things called NDAs.
Those attorneys again.
Yeah, the attorneys again. But yeah, at Wally Wingert, Wally.Wingert, and Wacky Wally's Vintage Toys on Facebook. So I guess one of those is Instagram, one of those is Twitter, and one of those is Facebook. I'm not really a big social media guy, but I'll post some fun stuff from time to time. Old photos from long ago, as well as new observations about things going on and quandaries. Is it okay to eat post cereal out of a Kellogg's bowl? I mean, just stuff that keeps me up late at night, wondering. So it's kind of fun. So, and of course, WallyOnTheWeb.com. So follow me there.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, hey, thanks so much, Wally. We really appreciate it.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we just talked to Wally Wingert, and what'd you think? I thought that was a great conversation. Thought he had a lot of fun things to say.
That was a blast because for uber nerds such as myself and many other people that follow Batman on Film, just getting that peek behind the curtain is like just fun. I think a lot of people that a lot of people don't care, but I think our circle of nerds, like, we love hearing that stuff. So just getting to hear his process of this is how the audition went, and then I go in and I talk like this. And nope, I'm not with anybody else. It's like, what? How are you not with Kevin Conroy talking, like, doing your lines in this game?
It's not as common of a thing anymore.
Yeah, and how are you not with Adam West doing Return of the Caped Crusaders at the same time? And it's just, the stuff like that is just so cool to hear. And then to hear his excitement and how much he loves playing that character. And it's like, it just seems, that the Us Weekly magazine, just like us, it's like, Wally Wingert, a voice actor, he's just like us. He loves Batman.
Well, yeah. What's cool is like when you can hear the passion for his craft, and what's fun is to see that he was just as excited as we were about the '60s show getting being able to come back and get new content out of it, seeing how big of a fan he was, and just to see his reaction to actually be part of that, and not just be one, but two major characters.
Yeah.
Which is cool.
Yeah, and as he said too, if we want more, us fans want more, we just gotta say it. So everybody listening, come on. Let's bug them for more Arkham, because there's money to be made by slapping Arkham on there. So they got to be thinking of what's next.
Yeah, it's been a few years. Rocksteady is pretty quiet right now, but I think sometime soon we'll find out what they're doing. And even if they're not doing an Arkham thing, somebody's got to be doing an Arkham thing, because it's such, like we were saying, it's its own pillar in the Bat universe. You've got movies, games. I think it's even kind of beyond the games because, Arkham just like Batman 66. If you take both of those properties, they're like their own little corner of the Bat universe, and they each have their own. There's games and movies and comic book series and novels. Like there's all these like tangential things that these extra pillars are supporting. So yeah, I think more Arkham. We need it.
Yeah, and I mean, the Riddler's a major character in all of the games too, and you've got the guy who, one guy did the voice of the Riddler in all of these games, and he's like, you call him up and he's there, he's game, he's all for it. And I mean, it seems like Kevin Conroy loves doing Batman too, so it's like, can't be that hard. Come on, guys, let's get something going, because if you build it, they will come.
Yeah. Well, what's cool is like, I don't like seeing more just for the sake of more. Exactly. And in the case of the Arkham games, I think they were really smart in terms of, they did take their time between each installment of the series. Even in Arkham Origins, could have turned out really like a cash-in kind of thing. But the way that game was made, I think was really smart. That the way they had a different studio make it, but they worked close enough with Rocksteady to kind of not step on each other's toes in terms of the storytelling. And even Bill Raimi's, we've talked about Arkham Origins quite a bit. I think it's one of the more underrated titles in the series.
I love Arkham Origins.
Yeah,
I love Arkham Origins. The intro, like Joker's intro with Carol of the Bells playing,
great, great.
I listened to that.
And the
track.
stuff at the end of the game they have with the Joker. Oh my gosh, like.
And it's Christmas, a snowy Christmas Eve in Gotham.
I know. Batman and Christmas go together.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
Like Penguin and Black Goo.
You're damn right. Batman Returns is a Christmas movie. Yeah. Oh man, we could talk about that game for hours.
I know, because it's just, that game broke my expectations too, just because it was like, I expected it to be like early Batman, but we got origins for a lot of the characters, and it kind of dovetails into the first game, Arkham Asylum, really well, like in terms of Bane and the Joker and the Riddler. And Joker in particular, I wasn't expecting them to go as far as they did, and I was really impressed with that game. I wish they would do some sort of remaster for that one, like they did the others, because I'm got a hankering to replay through it, but maybe at some point they'll do a remaster.
I basically still have my PS3 just because of that game.
Yeah.
I just, not that I like play it every day, but it's just like the option's there. When I want to play Origins, it's there.
Yeah. And Chris Cloud pointed out on Twitter a while back that it actually is, I believe, backwards compatible with the Xbox One. So if you have an Xbox One version of Arkham Origins, it'll work on or if you have a 360 version of Arkham Origins, it'll work on an Xbox One. So you can probably pick it up for pretty cheap if you haven't played it yet. So, but yeah, so I guess that's, I guess that wraps up this episode. Is there anything you wanted to plug?
I mean, I write reviews on Batman on Film. There's something in the works that I've sent Bill's way, and I think we're kind of going back and forth. So maybe by the time people listen to this, it will be on the site. Otherwise, my most recent reviews for Catwoman #7, which
how is that series doing?
It's fun. It's not game changing, but I mean, Joelle Jones, I love her art.
The art is fantastic, and they've been doing some pretty creative things too. Like in some of the earlier issues, like whenever they did like flashbacks, it would be a different artist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that worked really well, because usually it bugs me to have different artists in one issue, or like a 6-part story, but issues 4 and 5 are different artists. But when they've done that for this, it's made sense. It's not just because like on a timing, like time restraint or anything. It made sense within the story, like you just said, with flashbacks and everything. And so the most recent one, #7, which came out this month, it was fun. And I think what I really like about her writing too is there isn't a ton of inner monologue. Like, Tom King does a lot of inner monologue with dialogue, like back and forth. This is pretty straight up, which I think you and I have kind of talked about before. I love that with comics because it gets me to read them faster which I think is a pacing thing for me, and it's really like gets my attention, and then I just start back over and just reread it right away because it's not a long read, but it's just like it's really fun. It's a nice change of pace. So that's Catwoman number 7, and it starts off a new
arc.
So anybody that's missed out, you're not going to be lost jumping in at number 7. So
number 7, that makes sense. Like the first 6 issues, and it's a monthly title too, so
it's not overwhelming.
It's not overwhelming. It doesn't build up like some of the others. Nice.
Very whelmed.
Very whelmed. There's your Young Justice reference of the day.
And so then my Twitter is just at Lauer_Ryan. Lauer spelled like lower, so LOWER_Ryan.
Great. Awesome. Of course you can follow me, your old buddy, Ryan Haas on Twitter.
My old pal.
like Ernest P. Worrell, your old buddy Ernest. On Twitter at SMB_Ryan, and the Batman Podcast Network at BatPod Network. That's right. That's how you follow them. There you go. In terms of plugs for me, there are podcast wise, there's a few really interesting shows coming up soon that I'm not sure how in the order of things, when or how they're going to be released, but Glass comes out this week, so I do want to do a show on Glass, and that's going to be at least with Paul Herman and John Beerley, BOF alumnuses. That should be a good show. We are also doing Bill and Rick and me, and I believe Chris Clow. We're all going to do this. Bill has this kooky idea to do this bracket show about the top 5 most important moments in Batman history.
Ooh.
To kind of kick off this Batman's 80th anniversary is this year, and I think that could be a cool show to see which each of us on the panel thinks is the top 5 most important things in Batman's history, and we'll debate and discuss and see if some of us have thought of things the others haven't, or where we rank certain things. And I've got to say, just as a little teaser, I have mine written out, and I think they're going to surprise some people because they're not like obvious things. And I know what Rick's were at the time, and they were some of the more obvious things. And I think Bill was like, "Oh, you're full of crap. I'm going to get you with the ones that he has." So
but at the last minute, he probably changed it.
Just
like any podcast. Wait, one more thing. One more thing. Wait, one more.
So actually, Bill has an article on BOF right now, but they're not ranked. It's like that's his top 10 most important things, but they're not ranked. So I guess for the show, you'll have to see where he ranks it. So that'll be fun.
Oh, that's what I have that I posted on Christmas Eve. I ranked I think, is it right to call it DCAU? Basically the animated universe of films?
Yes.
I ranked those in which there's 13.
You ranked the ones that are Batman-centric.
Yes, Batman in the title. Yes. So
yes, that was a great article. I like that a lot.
I love rankings of things with people, and I like the conversation because it seems like everybody's is always different. And it's fun to just see where yours ranks compared to others.
Yeah,
and
my ranking is a little bit different than yours.
I was gonna say, I think number 1 is I had The Killing Joke way too high compared to a lot of people, but nobody's talked to me about it yet, or said like, "What the hell were you thinking?" And I just,
So y'all that haven't read it, go and look it up, that article, so you can fight with Lauer online.
Twitter at Lauer.
Because I thought it was way too high, personally. I can't really argue with you. Your number 1 was, to spoil the article, it was Under the Red Hood, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I can't really argue that much, but, my number 1 is still Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, I
just think it's so good.
That one it was still tough to say Under the Red Hood, but I don't know, just barely.
But I get it.
Just barely, yeah. Your least favorite, Batman Harley Quinn?
Oh yeah,
there we go.
By far.
I don't think that one's very contentious, or some people will put the Killing Joke in there for
some people. Really like. Some people tolerate Batman and Harley Quinn more than I think it deserves to be.
Yeah,
but that's just me. And I guess the last thing, anyway, the last thing to plug is the very next show, BOF 136, will actually be a satellite show that's not a Rick Shoe satellite show. It will actually be a me / Paul Herman show, I think we're going to talk about this Ghostbusters movie stuff. What? So be on the lookout for that shortly after this episode drops. And that'll be fun. Even if you're not a huge Ghostbusters fan, having Paul on the show is always fun. So and it's fun to listen to. So be on the lookout for that. So I guess that's all for today. So for Ryan, I'm Ryan. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Hey now! You've been listening to the Batman on Film podcast, a proud member and the sponsor of the Batman Podcast Network, batmanpodcastnetwork.com. You can listen to the BOF podcast on iTunes, YouTube, Stitcher, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and wherever good podcasts like this one can be found. Want to advertise on the BOF podcast? Go to advertisecast.com/the Batman on Film Con podcast. Follow Jet on Twitter at Batman on Film and on BOF's Facebook fan page at facebook.com/jet.batmanonfilm. Email Jet via jet@batman-on-film.com. I'm announcer Rachel. Thanks for listening.
So I have a question for you, and you can completely say no to this, and that's fine. I won't be hurt or anything. Before our intro, would you mind saying something that we'll record and just saying of like, this is the Riddler, like in your Riddler voice of like, this is the Riddler, and you're listening to Batman on Film? Or you could say, this is Wally Wingert, the voice of the Riddler, however you want to do it, but something like that I think could be really fun.
I'll do the Riddler, yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, we're
Batman
recording, so whenever...
Batman on Film, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or the Batman on Film podcast or something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Listen up, all you shaved monkeys. It is I, the Riddler. And you are listening to a podcast called Batman on Film. Question, why is it not called Riddler on Film? You dirty, stinking, filthy scoundrels!
It's so much better than anything that I just said. And you just snapped right into it. Ugh, icing on the cake.